Hello, and welcome to the You Must Be Joking podcast. I'm Player 2.
I'm Player 1.
And I'm Player 3. Again.
So I think we should start today's show with the corrections from last week. So, the Thai boys are now 3. Yay.
Woohoo! All
I
12
think,
and a coach.
And the coach, yeah.
How did they put a coach in there?
For God's sake. But yeah, they got them out within 3 days. In a 3-day span, I think it was.
Did you hear how they did it?
No, I think they checked the weather, didn't they? We're like, we gotta go now.
Yeah, but how they actually got the boys out.
How did they do it?
They sedated them.
You're
Are
joking.
you kidding?
No, they sedated them and got them out that way.
So basically what they were doing was dragging a dead body around.
Well, they were alive. But yeah,
They were just unconscious.
I think they found it easier if they weren't conscious.
They did say it was going to be complicated to first of all teach them, make them regulate their breath, not panic. There were a lot of things against them. Just sedating them and making them like a lump of meat seems to be
easier to carry around.
I
Yeah,
can't
they've
even imagine it.
they've already got problems now. I mean, there was a video released of them all in the hospital.
Well, actually, tell a lie. Apparently, the authorities aren't actually confirming or denying. They're being a bit fishy about it when they sedate. But according to the BBC, speaking to people involved, they say the boys were heavily sedated and only semi-conscious.
Oh my gosh.
The thing is, I don't know why they're trying to hide it, because it's not a bad thing. If they thought it was easy to get them out, it was a bit in their best interest.
Oh my god. The logic. So this is.
Might have broken some rules.
Yeah, so the logic behind it was meaning that they wouldn't panic in the darkness and swirling cave water.
Mm.
That sounds horrid.
I don't fancy it.
But it kind of makes sense, because the reason they can only do 4 a day because the darkness fog will basically work you to exhaustion. You can imagine basically on their news effectively conscious around for 6 hours.
Sedation in those caves would have been very medically risky. That's a quote.
The thing is, if they panicked, it'd be worse.
Possibly, if they ripped their mask off.
It's not just that, it doesn't just put them at danger, it puts the people there with at danger.
And one guy already died. One expert.
But it worked.
It did work, all of them. What about the coach? Did they sedate him?
Yeah,
I think so.
I mean, obviously we won't find out more till later, at some point.
I tell you what I found weird was that the captain of this team was one of the first people to go. Now, I would have thought the captain would be one of the last.
Well, wasn't it? They did it in the order they thought they were the weakest first.
Says a lot about your captain. I think he's the weakest member.
Medically weak.
I mean, yeah, it makes sense.
That's the order they took them out in, so basically they sent a doctor in to assess them and then took them out in the order of, like, who needs to go now and who can wait. Would you like to talk about England losing player 1, or would it hurt too much?
No, it doesn't matter. England lose all the time.
Are you used to it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more of a rugby man, so it doesn't really bother me that much. It was a good tournament. The English played above expectation. Because unlike before, they actually played like a team in a team-based game. Before the tournament, if an English fan were to be told you'd be disappointed for not reaching the final of the game, that's good enough. So I think that shows how well they play.
I think recently, especially I've seen in the news, that everyone's quite happy with what they did. They have nothing to be ashamed of. They got further than anybody would ever think. And it sucks to not be in the final, but they have brought basically the entire country together.
Apart from the people who don't like football, cough, player 1.
That's yourself.
I thought you were player 1.
You're player 1.
Jay?
Do you know why this confused me? Because in the order when you're talking, like, you know, in the intro, you do player 2 first.
It's because you wanted to do the intro.
But then why aren't you player 1?
Well, because you're player 1.
But why am I player 1?
We've established it now, we can't change it.
I think you chose that.
You chose player 1.
I think you just assumed it.
But I am player 1. Right, okay.
Well, you are for definite, and that's not changing.
Evil lad, ever.
Oh dear. But yes, it's true, I don't like football. But, you know, you slowly dragged me in, and I was
I had nothing to to do with it whatsoever. I never tried to make you like football. You
just-
bring it up, if anything.
Yeah, we
I
just
think
talked
I
a bit.
think deep down, I think you like football. And I think you're just playing this
I
I don't like football because it's, in a weird, paradox way, it is cool to not like something that is popular.
Yes, I'm a hipster. No.
Oh, there we go. He's just admitted it.
I don't like the game of football, but I like that how it's brought everybody together, especially in this. Like, as a team, I would always support England regardless of what the sport is, but it doesn't mean I have an interest in the sport.
I think England like a good moan anyway. So I heard all the fans yesterday on the train just, complaining about the tactics that were used by Southgate and what should have been. I think the English would, whether they won or lost, would always moan. And they'd enjoy moaning. They enjoy a good moan.
It's just like the dream. It's like Bullseyes. Look what you could have won.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you've still got another game to play.
Yeah, they do.
Most useless game of the time.
Well, I've saw a lot of companies jumping on the bandwagon at the moment, saying, "Oh, England, yeah, it's a shame." They said, I think the overall sentiment is that we said it was coming home. We didn't say when.
Eventually.
I saw Virgin do a post about they had on one of their signs. It's coming home. It's delayed until 2022, or whenever it's supposed to. Yeah, it's 2022, isn't it?
You guys heard about... Is it Build-A-Bear?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw the news about
This
that.
seems like the most stupid idea ever.
Age-based
Sales.
sales.
Oh,
Age-based sales.
my child is one. This £50 bear now is now £1. I think, was it Manchester or something, and had queues of up to a mile long.
And they had a police officer at the scene.
I know in Blackpool the queue was 5 hours long. In Uxbridge it was like 3 hours long, and they cut the queue off early because they said it was too popular.
And the same thing in America as well. Build-A-Bear.
They did it in America as well.
Just a publicity
It's an
stunt.
American company.
It is an American company, but I thought they'd done the sale in the UK. But to me, what it shows is how ridiculously overpriced their bears are already.
Yeah. There have also been reports of long queues in US shopping centres, where the American company was also putting on the same promotion.
It's like they didn't think it through.
I mean, they got a lot of people in, but...
Well, yeah, but it's now like world news, isn't it? Or at least European.
As they
American.
say, bad PR is still good PR.
We're talking about it right now.
With our
I mean, Build-A-Bear.
hundreds of listeners.
It's ridiculous. Just so overpriced.
Have you been in one?
The basic bear costs between £12 and £27, while limited edition bears costing more than £50. And then you can buy clothes for the 10 bear from £4.50 to £15. What the heck?
I mean, it seems like they did not anticipate it being that popular, but of course it's going to be that popular.
Oh, of course they did. Their stock prices up, everything. They're happy. They probably
What they've
did
done,
it for a stunt.
they've basically just disappointed thousands of people.
Some people benefited.
But maybe some kids were like, oh, my friend's got this Build-A-Bear, and I want one. Now they're going to pay for what?
Just can't imagine. I mean, at our ages, it's not worth it, is it? But
Not really.
I think we're past the age of getting a bear.
you'd be wrong.
It's not cost effective for us,
I have had a bear bought for me.
really.
It was
Really,
a toothless
Player
plush. It was
what?
toothless.
Oh,
Good.
yeah. How to Train Your Dragon. Got
Good
it.
grief.
I'm sorry, I have a loving girlfriend.
TMI.
Burn!
Bit too much
Wow.
information there.
Wow.
Now we're not in with a chance. Is that what you're saying?
I would always buy one for you, player free.
Aw.
Anytime, any day.
All by himself. Sigh of disappointment there.
I feel like I've hurt him.
Look at your face.
I apologise.
Look at your face, Graham. Your face, Graham. Mexico City sinks about 10 inches a year. Fact.
Well, I have something about places changing
Oh, do you?
height. Yeah, I mean, one place in the US is raised up on stilts.
Is this in Swampland or something?
It might have been somewhere like Chicago.
Nah, it'll be Chicago. It'll be somewhere in, like,
Oh,
Florida.
I remember this. I think you're right. Yeah.
The whole of Chicago. When was this?
When it was being built. originally.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Rising
you
of
know.
Chicago. The Rising of Chicago.
So why did they raise it?
Well, Chicago's on the I'm going to the Wikipedia page for it, obviously. Lake Michigan. So Chicago is not much higher than the shorelines of Lake Michigan. There was little to no naturally occurring drainage for the city. The lack of drainage causes unpleasant living conditions, which basically means they were swimming in their own filth.
Knee deep.
Knee deep. So as I was saying, the lack of drainage causes unpleasant living conditions, and the standing waters harbor pathogens, which cause numerous epidemics. So they raised it up to basically so they could get rid of their waste. Probably into Lake Michigan, to be honest.
And then people swim in Lake Michigan anyway.
So what they did, they basically lifted buildings up on jack screws. Entire buildings. Did it building by building.
How long did that take?
It doesn't say. It just says in January 1858. How much was it raised by? 6 feet. Or 1.88 metres.
1.88. The height
Yeah. A height of a person, basically.
of a
And a
big
bit.
person.
Jeez.
What's a Chicago resident called?
A Chicagoan
Doing.
Not a Chicagoite or
or a Chicagan?
a Chicagan. That sounds about right. Chicagoan.
Because what about someone from New York? Is that a New Yorker?
New Yorker, yeah.
What about New Jersey? A New Jerseyite?
New Jerseyan.
Or just a New Jersey?
A New Jersey.
Because if they're from London, it's a London.
That makes sense.
Liverpool, a Liverpudlian.
That doesn't.
So the official term for a Chicago person is Chicagian.
A Chicagian.
Yeah.
Because, like, Glasgow, it's Glaswegian. What about someone from Edinburgh?
I'll have a look.
Scottish.
Sounds a bit racist, but yep.
Just a bit.
Edinburgh.
Just a bit an Edinburgh.
Really?
Edinburgh.
Are you joking?
No, I'm just guessing.
He's just
Oh.
spitballing.
Spitballs.
I don't think there is an demonym.
I'm sure we're wrong with most of these. Anyway, like Chicagian, that doesn't sound right. And I'm sure there's probably like rival
Which
gangs.
is on Wikipedia. It has to be true.
No, it could be anything. Some people might call themselves Chicagoites. Listeners, if you're from Chicago, please do send us an email.
Just comment.
Please correct us.
Please put it to the attention of Player 3.
Is there gang warfare based on what name you choose for your resident status? Probably not.
One does.
I just remember in Anchorman, they were also saying the same thing. Like, are you a San Diegan? San Diegan?
San Diegoite.
San Diegoite?
Or just a Sandy.
Sandy Toxvig?
Someone from Las Vegas. Are they a vegan?
Oh gosh. No wonder no one really likes Las Vegas.
Viva la...
Yes,
What
they are
about-
less vegan.
Oh my
Oh
god.
no.
What about Blackpool?
Black Pudlian.
Black Pudlian. That just sounds very rude. Or like a black pudding.
It sounds rude, but why?
Pudlians.
Pudlian.
Pudlian. But does that mean like someone from Hartlepool is a Hartpudlian?
A Hartpoolian? Oh gosh,
Hartpool.
we could get
Hart-
scorned here.
Whoa, okay, so I'm looking into the... people originating from Blackpool are called Black Pudlians, although Sanguigians, or Sanguians, is also
Why?
sometimes used.
What, because of the beach?
Yeah?
Yeah, but there's beaches everywhere. That makes no sense.
It's the same...
That means you'll have someone from Jamaica call themselves a Sandwicher because it's a beach.
They also use it for people coming from Morecambe or Southport.
I was cooking pasta the other day and I was like, oh, I'll put salt in it to make it boil quicker. And I was like,
I did that
I
today.
don't think it actually does make it boil quicker. I think it's for seasoning. But I'm like, but then I remembered watching BoJack Horseman and they were on about adding oil to water. And for whatever reason, the characters said to do it. Was they were, oh no, it doesn't work anymore. And they're like going, no, I've been buying fucking bottles of oil for years for nothing. Things like that. But they were both about cooking pasta. It's a gluten overload, if you know what I mean. So has anyone else got any old wife tales that they think...
Peeing on jellyfish stings?
Yeah, but we all knew that, almost.
No, but wives' tales, we kind of just assume they're correct, but are they? Because does adding salt to water make it boil? Because I don't think it does.
I think in the quantities that are used for cooking, it doesn't make any difference whatsoever.
Yeah, because you'll add like a pinch of salt to like over a litre, well, to just like a huge.
You're probably looking at about over a litre of water.
Yeah, and it's just never good.
It won't make it boil faster.
No. Surely, if you added like tons of salt, it'd make it.
I was going to say about salt and ice.
Yeah. Salt and ice.
Maybe this is why that stemmed the other way with boiling point, because of seawater, and when you put salt onto ice on the roads and grit, it melts the ice.
Have you seen what happens? Salt on ice, and then you put your hand over it and like clamp it down for a while.
Surely you would end up with a handprint in the ice.
No, I think it actually burns your skin.
I know when you want to make ice cream, you lower the freezing point of the ice by adding salt to it.
So that does reduce the melting
so basically
point.
you end up with a colder temperature if you add ice to the.
So it reduces the
add
melting
salt
point.
to the ice.
Does it change the boiling point?
It was called. Do you remember? Can you remember? Like a few years ago, it was called the Salt and Ice Challenge.
Unfortunately, not. No.
I thought it was the ice bucket challenge.
No, Salt and Ice Challenge. It used it really.
Oh, I do
damages
remember
skin.
something strange about this.
Stupid, really stupid. Depends on how long you actually leave it on there.
Yeah, people got nasty, nasty burns. But I don't understand the science behind it.
So does adding salt to water make it boil?
Well, it reduces the melting point of ice.
Yeah, but
does it
ice
affect the boiling
ice
point?
And water's a different state.
I know. We should look at a graph. Salt lowers the melting and freezing points of water because it lowers the vapour pressure of water. So this is to do with ice cubes. The ice cube will absorb energy from the environment to help break bonds between water molecules. That's a stack exchange response. Something I quite trust. But I'm not sure about the boiling point. I know that when you go on a mountain, I think every 1,000 feet you go up, is it like 2 degrees it lowers? Something like
that? It's about.
Or is it less than that? I think but it does change. So I think the boiling point on Everest was like in the 70s or something like that.
So the misconception is that when you add salt to water, it needs more heat to start boiling than normal water does. So it takes longer to boil technically, but the temperature's hotter.
You heat it up for long, sure.
Well, it doesn't boil at the same point, does it? So if you add salt to the water, you're actually raising the boiling point to I don't know, let's say 115 degrees. It's not that much, but it would take longer to get to that point.
So you're telling me that adding salt to water makes it boil, means it takes longer to boil?
Slightly.
So well, then why do people do it?
So if anything, the old wives' tale is completely wrong.
Yeah, in this day and age, it's basically just used to flavour the water, flavour the pasta, to have flavour to it. But yeah, from what I'm reading on Curiosity.com, it just makes it take longer. But even in the quantities we're looking at, it's only going to make a minimal difference.
You're right. The opposite is true. Adding salt to water results in boiling point elevation. So why do we do it just for flavour, not for the actual benefit of saving any energy?
Well, there we go. You learn something new. It does the opposite of what you think.
Well, that might be true for a lot of the old wives' tales. A lot of the old wives' tales are just blatantly false, aren't they?
Are they though?
A lot of wives' tales probably came from the ancient writings. I remember one where to cure a headache you put fox genitals on your head. So we know that works, right?
What other old wives' tales can you think of?
Carrots help you see in the dark.
We know why that. We know why that was just a propaganda thing in the war.
It does
to hide radar.
Just not as much as anything else.
To do what? Hide radar.
It was to hide the discovery of radar from the
Germans,
from the enemy.
So basically, we sent all this propaganda out. So
was it not because you could grow carrots in your backyard?
That might be another contributing factor, but
because
they didn't want the Germans to get too suspicious about radar.
So basically, all their pilots eat loads of carrots, so they could see in the dark, so they knew where their planes were.
It was to.
Really?
It was.
Yeah.
It was to throw them off the scent.
I always thought it was just to kind of encourage people to.
That's a secondary effect.
It's an added benefit, but the main reason was for the propaganda, because if the Germans got suspicious, they'd have lost the upper hand.
So, old wives' tale, you got apple a day keeps the doctor away.
Doesn't really make much sense. Really?
It just means eat more fruit and
Yeah.
veg, and it's healthier. So it kind of makes sense.
But there's a lot of sugar in apples, so it doesn't keep the dentist away.
It does not.
Yeah, but isn't there other things in apples which are quite healthy?
Pectin?
I swear there's something like.
Does
I
it
swear,
show...
I'm plucking something from something I've heard or read a while ago about apples. I think apples are actually good for you. That is the
Wow, breaking
hypothesis.
news.
Is this the
The study
conclusion?
is
Apples are
going to
good
be
for you.
conducted now. Apples are animals.
Are apples good for you? Player 1 concludes yes. End of old
And how many years of
wives'
science
tale.
did that take? Well, isn't it this other old wives' tale that basically cheese makes you have bad dreams? And that's just blatantly false.
A lot of old wives' tales
Wait, what?
are based on
Say-
medical.
What gives you bad dreams?
Cheese.
Never that. Yeah, but I swear it does. Isn't that true?
It's not.
Are you sure?
If anything, it does the opposite because it has tryptophan in it, which is good for the sleep-inducing hormone serotonin, apparently.
Yeah, but that means you go to sleep. Doesn't mean what you're going to do when you are asleep.
I swear, I'm not joking, I swear the British Cheese Board did a study.
The British cheese.
Yep.
Are they served with grapes?
And why?
So, apples are extremely rich in important antioxidants, flavonoids, and dietary fibre.
Mhm.
The phytonutrients and antioxidants in apples may help reduce the risk of developing cancer, hypertension, diabetes, and heart disease. There we are. It improves your neurological health. This is from Medical News Today. In 2006, a study published in the Journal of Experimental Biology and Medicine found that quercetin, one of the antioxidants found abundantly in apples, was one of 2 compounds that help reduce cellular death that is caused by oxidation and inflammation of neurons.
So
So
brain
there we
stuff.
are.
Brain stuff.
Brain stuff. It prevents dementia, reduces your risk of stroke,
Gosh, I need to eat more apples.
lowering your levels of bad cholesterol. I mean, I wonder if this research was funded by an apple growing company, you know?
There's
You always gotta
probably a
wonder
lot of
this.
competition though, so I doubt it.
Oh, here we go. I've got another old wives' tale.
Okay.
People go mad on a full moon.
Yes. No effect.
Now, what did you say?
No effect.
No effect.
I'm going out there.
I'm saying completely the opposite here. I have worked in a pub. I've worked in a care home, and I can say every time there was a full moon, either on that night or the day after or the night after, people would go lunar.
Yeah, but do you think that's just they do that all the time?
No,
Do you think it's coincidence?
no, because when I used to work at the care home, you'd speak to carers and nurses who'd been working for like 20 years, and I remember asking, this whole lunatic, is it real? Is there anything in it?
Oh, is
And
that
they'd
where
go,
lunatic comes from?
Yeah,
Oh.
exactly. That's where the word lunatic comes from. And they'd say yes because, like clockwork, every 2 weeks and he couldn't say it was a placebo because they're seeing it and they think, oh, it's a full moon, so I'm going to act like a lunatic. We'd have some elderly people who are on sort of end of life care,
Palliative care.
and they're sort of quite diminished in what they can do.
Uh-huh.
So basically, they were bedridden. They had no idea what was going on outside. And every 2 weeks, every time there was a full moon, they'd be good as gold in between. There'd be nothing wrong. And as soon as a full moon, problems. Little things just like playing up or being aggressive or anything really. Just
Being
not
very
sleeping.
hairy.
Yeah, they will start howling. Generally,
No.
the full moon has an effect.
I think this has really been investigated though. What research has found is this: people's sleep quality can be lower, even though they couldn't see the full moon or any extra light it produced. And they took an average 5 minutes longer to get to sleep. That could make people more rowdy, supposedly, if their sleep quality is worse. It could make people
However-
irate the day after, or...
Yeah, but sometimes people stay up late or will have some greater impact on their sleep in one day and they won't have that behaviour. I mean, let's just think what the full moon does to the Earth. The moon has a huge effect on what the oceans do.
That's a lot of mass, though, you know. We're a tiny percentage of that.
Yeah, but like having a celestial body that has an effect on... Surely, if anything, if it has an effect on something that scale, surely it'd have an
Do
effect
we
on something
notice
smaller.
it? Do you notice it? Or is it just...
I do notice it because people go fucking mental.
do you notice being pulled towards the moon slightly? Or, you know, when you jump, you go really high on a full moon?
No, but it's not.
It's not based on that at
That's
all. I'm just talking at my arse.
That's just ludicrous.
It's lunacy.
It's lunacy.
Yes,
Way.
lunacy. There we go.
We crowbarred that one in.
There is actually quite a few stories actually about the moon.
But this is going to be like one of those. How many cups of coffee is good for you a day? Should you drink a glass of red wine? Is it good? There's so much conflicting evidence. No one knows what to believe.
The thing with those though, things you consume, it varies from person to person.
Everyone's
I'm looking at some of
anatomy is
these
pretty different.
papers that have been published, and a lot of them are like two things. Like it says the full moon and motorcycle-related deaths.
Oh my gosh.
It's just stuff like that. So let me just have a look.
Strange study.
Yeah, well, a lot of them seem to be like that. There's one here that's like football injuries related to the lunar cycle.
See, it's a thing.
Well, these are things people have studied. Doesn't mean they're right, does it?
Yeah, it's been a thing that people are thinking, what does it actually affect?
Okay, so I'll read this excerpt from the motorcycle one. The full moon is associated with an increased risk of fatal motorcycle crashes, although potential confounders cannot be excluded. An awareness of the risk might encourage motorcyclists to drive with extra care during the full moon and more generally to appreciate the power of seemingly minor distractions at all times. So what they're saying is, it makes a difference.
Here we go, on the Wikipedia page about lunar effect. It says under Law and Order, senior police officers in Brighton, the UK, announced in June 2007 that they were planning to deploy more officers over the summer to counter trouble they believe is linked to the lunar cycle. This followed research by the Sussex Police Force that concluded there was a rise in violent crime when the moon was full. From my experience of 19 years of being a police officer, undoubtedly on full moons we do seem to get people with sort of strange behaviour, more fractious, argumentative. See, I told you it has an effect.
Well, there's no argue with the science, is there?
If a police force is willing to spend more money, more officers on, because bear in mind how tight their budgets are.
See, what we've learned is that not all wives' tales are rubbish. Some of the, well, obviously, as Player 3 was saying, some always have some marking science to
A lot of medical related as well.
Yeah.
Like what it does to people's bodies.
Like a lot of the old ones are going to be based on what they see and understand at that time. Like obviously the lunar one's going to be something that they're going to notice eventually.
Do you think of any others?
Cheese. Or did Player 2 already mention that?
We did mention cheese. I was reading into that study that the cheese board conducted, and it's always going to get you, isn't it, Player 1? Apparently it was full of whole errors and like.
Were you about to say full of holes? Full of holes.
I'm sorry, I didn't notice that, but I'll take it.
You did that on purpose.
I wish I did.
We'll cut out that comment. We'll make it seem like you're a genius.
Oh yes, I'm a genius.
A punny guy.
From what I can tell, that they didn't have a control group at all, so the results are very mixed. I think obviously they were trying to do a bit of drumming up their own business, like cheese doesn't give you nightmares, but I don't think there's any conclusive evidence that shows one way or the other. So what I think is that it's going to have zero effect.
Could be placebo.
That's a big thing.
In this case, it'd be the nocebo effect, which is a negative effect.
Yeah. Doctors
don't because really... people are like, oh, I'm going to have cheese, it's going to affect what they're thinking before they go to sleep.
So you're saying a self-fulfilling prophecy as well? A bit. I was going to say one thing. Oh, go on.
No, go ahead.
I'm going to change the topic a little bit. So
No, go ahead, that's fine.
With old wives' tales, some have proved very useful for actually medical knowledge as well. Like there was an old wives' tale about eating willow bark for pain relief, and aspirin was actually developed from willow bark, and that's what's used for pain relief now.
A lot of the plant-based ones turned out to be true.
I guess if you ate the wrong thing, you'd just die.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like natural selection. That's what happens.
So only the good remedies have come through.
This person ate this tree bark and they're okay, and it solved their problem.
Or it's helped a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and the ones that don't help, obviously, they die, and that's natural selection. So it sort of happened out of that way of things happening.
Who thought that eating whale, like blubber, would be a good cure for something? Why do they do that still nowadays? Do they just want a whale sandwich?
It's delicious.
Is there actually science behind that?
Look at some
other cultures...
Yeah, I mean, they wanted there's like special oils in whale blubber, isn't there?
Other cultures have different wives' tales as well, don't they?
Just looking around the whole wives' tales thing, a lot of them involve about conceiving a baby.
Yeah, and gender gender stuff.
Yeah, well, the
Something
obvious.
like indigestion and hairy babies and hard labour means baby boy or rubbish like this. It's all just ludicrous.
It's all a 50-50 chance.
Yeah.
So, there's other sayings, obviously, like Red Sky at night,
Shepherd's
Farmer's
Delight.
Delight, or Shepherd's Delight.
True. That's another one, isn't it?
When I was growing up, I was always told if clouds are laying down, it's going to rain. I bet that's not true at all. It's just like, oh, they need a rest.
Well, I've heard sort of this one, not based on cows, but based on swallows that are flying in the air, and house martins and birds. And that's to do with air pressure changes, which is how sort of barometers tell us about weather changes as well, like to do with air pressures. So when you do see swallows flying low, it means there's high pressure in the air, right?
Yeah.
And does high pressure mean rain?
Surely not.
I always get confused this way.
Yeah, high pressure and low
No, low pressure is rain.
pressure is rain.
High pressure gives cloudless sky. I always get confused with those two. It's like I can't tell my left from my right. I was just going to say, like, how can you say to someone who doesn't have an L or on their hand, you know, so if they've got no point of reference, how can you tell them to go left if there's no point of reference? It doesn't really... I think this was actually on QI at one point, and they were saying, like, how would you tell an alien spaceship? How would you direct them to Earth based on going, like, left or right? Because left wouldn't really mean anything, would it?
Yeah, but then
Assuming they could
would it?
assuming they could understand. No.
You could say move to your side,
Which
and
one?
you go, no, your other side. Then you'd
That's
say,
a good point.
you'd go, no, your other side, and you go, right, I'm going to call that side left. And the first one you went to,
Oh, okay.
right,
No,
so
no.
okay.
You could
That
probably,
would work.
you could probably do it in terms of, like, electron spin.
Oh, I think you make things too
Goodness
complicated.
me.
If they can understand the word forward, back, sides, then they can understand left or right.
What if they're like seven-dimensional beings, though?
You know, on
Seventh
the
dimension.
dish they sent on the Voyager,
Right, okay, if they move, if they could comprehend things in seven, I'm just going to say, just move around, and then I will tell, then I will label things,
And
and
you
then,
pay attention.
so you'll make a move, and I will tell you what it is, okay, and then you will associate that movement you've made with the label I've just given it, okay,
And
then
perform
after
that
we've done that
same
calibration
action.
phase,
The same
yeah,
time, yeah.
after we've done that calibration phase, I'm then going to direct you.
it's a very engineering way of thinking about it.
Would that work? You don't have to go
Pretty
about
logical.
electron spin and all that.
Have a datum.
Yeah, let's go to the periodic table to find something we both agree on.
Well, it's constant, isn't it?
Yeah, but how complicated is that? I've never ever thought of using a hydrogen atom to find my way to the shop.
But these are interdimensional beings.
Yeah, but why would they? Just because they're more dimensions does not mean they're going to be, like, infinitely smarter.
What if you told them
Well, they're
to
smart enough to
move?
find us before we found them.
What if you told them to move
So you
and
might have
then
just
they...
bumped into us by coincidence.
Okay.
Like, what the is this? Right, is there a correlation between a being that is just in 4 dimensions, not necessarily created a 4th dimension or such? It
Well, the
just
fourth
happens
dimension is
to.
time.
Is it?
Yes.
Is this not? Is it?
I believe so. I mean, in physics, it's classed as another dimension.
It's just that we can't control which dimension that's in because we're only going forward.
I think in all the like mathematical notation, it's basically classed as another dimension.
I know, but is it like?
A mathematical extension of 3D space. Oh, maybe not. Maybe I'm
That's what I
thinking
mean,
of
I don't-
something else.
I don't think I think I don't think it is.
I think in physics it is
Yeah, but not in. That's just for the math.
because famously we're like
Oh.
space time.
Einstein did not interpret time, t, as as a 4th dimension of space. Space is not 3 dimensions plus t. Instead, it is 4D. Okay, so my idea was wrong. My hand is up. Guilty as charged.
Okay, going back to what I was saying. So let's just say you had a being which existed in four dimensions, not of its own creation.
Could it
meaning
move in the 4 dimensions?
It exists in 4 dimensions. It existed, and it just so happens to exist in 4 dimensions. There is always the assumption, because it is in the 4th dimension as well, that it is an infinitely smarter being than us. I say not necessarily at all.
But they wouldn't get here on like a rocket that's just packed with explosives, which is what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, they would have something. I mean, they wouldn't cycle to to Earth, basically.
No,
It
you're
wouldn't-
assuming it's going to be as difficult for them to travel here as it is for us.
Yeah.
It might not be.
It
though.
might not be. I don't.
It might be really easy. Be like, oh my god, where the hell are we?
Well, they might have special powers.
Thought the Weatherspoons was the first legitimate.
What's left?
Right, calibration. But anyway, if you had to guide aliens in space and you couldn't use left, right, I would literally just say, just move around, assuming they could comprehend the word move.
Well, here's the thing. What if they're like a couple of light years away?
It would take a long time to communicate.
Because that's always a possibility. Because they might send a message, and then we'll all get
I think there's a
year later.
huge flaw in this example. That is all.
Yeah. There are a few flaws, really.
Like, if they're close enough for us to see them, surely they're close enough to see Earth.
And then you can say, come here!
Well, they'd probably just like snap of their fingers and they'd get it.
But why do you assume they can do that?
Because otherwise we would have seen them, right? Well, they all invisible to
No,
our
but like-
to our
No,
telescope.
but when you say they could snap their fingers, then they could be there. That's assuming that they're like really smart, really technologically advanced.
Well, you would think that to get here you would have to be. Literally, our
I
Like, okay,
have
so the
faith
next-
in a blithering
in our
idiot to
solar
do
system,
something.
we know that there's no other living life, right?
Solar system? No,
Yeah.
we don't know that.
Why?
I think Titan was supposed to potentially have life. Yeah, one
Fair
of
enough.
Jupiter's moons was.
Yeah.
Have they sent anything
Europa?
there?
Have you checked every square inch of dirt on Mars?
But nothing massive that we could see, right?
Well, it would.
Something that we could detect.
We assume it would be basic life. You know, like just
Yes,
cells.
it would be basic life. Maybe getting from the next solar system over will take, I don't know, at light speed, a year. I don't know what they do. Is it Alpha Centauri? I think that's a couple of light years away.
Yeah, 4.3 light years from Earth, Alpha Centauri.
Assuming they've got that sort of technology to go speed of light travel, which I think we've proven can't happen.
Well, we could do that.
We can get up to close to the speed of light.
Can we?
Yeah, you just keep accelerating, and then
Yeah, but how long will it take
Years.
for the acceleration?
a while.
Long enough.
You need a lot of fuel.
Or you just use those nuclear. A lot of the ways that we've wanted to do it have been banned because they wanted to fire nukes behind the spacecraft, which would have been a decent idea. But then, you know, then the space above our ionosphere would be like.
Radioactive.
Well, they banned the tests, didn't they? There's like a global convention, so you can't fire nukes into space and just make them blow up all the time. You can't test in space, basically.
What about those solar sails?
Well, they would take ages.
They're quite cool.
Yeah, but there's no fuel required.
No fuel will be required, but the acceleration on them will be so slow.
How are you going to convert that into like a propulsion system?
Because it is an actual thing hitting us.
Yeah, it's basically
So it will
going off
actually
photons, isn't
if
it?
you get the sails bigger,
Oh, so literally just
using something like I believe
Using
it.
light to hit it.
rebounds.
Like, I believe it. Solar sail.
I suppose it's powered off photons, isn't it? So when light hits it, it imparts a tiniest amount of force and it bounces
Oh,
off.
so it is momentum based. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was like converting to electricity and then
No,
some
nothing.
engine.
No conversion. Literally, just imagine like the sunlight as wind.
Mm.
Solar wind.
Solar wind, but not a solar flare. 'Cause that's
So Player 3 was talking about different old wives' tales in different countries. I'm just reading some from India, and one of the ones that's just amused me is that to get rid of your cold, you have to pass it on.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
I like that one.
They got a good ethic. They got a good.
This
Yeah,
is from the reliable source of BuzzFeed.
That makes sense though. Can you imagine why they do that?
Yeah, I can see where it comes from.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
It's like you've got something inside you, and to get rid of
No,
it.
no. Because with Old Wives' Tale, there's always the myth to why it happened, and there's a real reason. So
Oh,
they say, the only way to get rid of a cold is to spread it off. It's like one of your friends has chickenpox, your mum will arrange for you to go round so you also get chickenpox.
Yeah, but
If you get
cold
ill,
thing.
you get
'cause
stronger.
If you pass on the cold, you're probably near the end of the cold anyway, right?
so
Nothing
you
in
want shared illness, like with chickenpox?
Yeah,
So you get it on
because
time.
if someone's got a bug, you want to spread it around, because then if everyone gets the bug, then you'll all become stronger because your body will become used to that bug. So then you don't end up with the whole Spanish turning up to South America and then
Yeah.
one person just sneezes
And
all of a
kills
sudden
a whole
you've got
population.
a civilization dying because they've never encountered this common sneeze before. Do you see what I mean?
Okay.
I
Do you-
was thinking more the route, like, to expel it from your body.
I
You
think
have
that's
to transfer
where
it to
probably.
someone else.
I think that's where it originates from.
That would be like the whole spiritual side of it. However, I can imagine a mother thinking, right, you want bugs to spread, not in a like, oh, we want to kill everybody way, just trying to improve immune systems here.
Yeah, but would they have known about that kind of stuff? I
I think so.
mean, 200 years ago, the French were eating next to their toilets. Like, literally, the was mixing with the food. They didn't. They couldn't. They didn't associate it with being ill, and people were dying, and they didn't realise why.
The problem with Europe was people controlled with education.
And most operations done in Harley Street in England in Victorian times were more likely to kill you than like not having it at all. Like operations that were supposed to help. I remember like trepanning, which is where they get a stone and they relieve head pressure.
Yeah, they cut a hole in your head, right?
Cut a hole in the head with a rock.
If you ask your mum and say, when you were young, if one of your friends had chickenpox or something, what would your reaction? What would you do?
Yeah, my mum shoved me next to them and to prevent me getting it as an adult.
Exactly.
But that's the only situation.
Yeah, but it'd be the same thing with a cold.
Well, with a cold though, you're still going to keep getting colds regardless. It doesn't make you immune.
My mum still says you'll get a cold from being outside if it's cold. So.
Well, again, that's like another old wives' tale. Like,
Exactly.
Like from what we know now, we know it's never going to be true. Like, running around with a wet head, you'll get a cold, but you won't because it's based on microbes and the such.
Virus.
Yeah, it just means you could get ill. Like,
You're more susceptible.
You don't want to be cold and damp for a long amount of time.
You're more susceptible, yeah.
I think the problem with the Indian wives' tale is just the cold is the element because it's constantly changing. So you can't. But the whole principle behind if you're ill, spread it is good, unless it's like the bubonic plague.
Just spread it around, it's fine.
That's where do you draw the line?
Well, if you've got an ailment and it's not killing you, spread it.
I'm so glad we weren't born like a few hundred years ago.
Yeah,
we
we
were
are
so
very lucky.
screwed.
Fish and seafood, actually just any food from water, is got plastic in it. So although eating fish is seen as healthy, apparently now if you eat loads of fish, you got loads of plastic inside of you because the fish has.
But this wouldn't be true in like farmed areas, would it? Like in lakes, man-made
like
lakes.
a truly remote water source.
No, man-made, man-made breeding
where the water's coming from.
in fish farms.
Depends where the water was coming from, because you couldn't just have like the same body, even if it was man-made.
I think before, like a few years ago, the big thing was mercury in fish. That was in the media, in tuna and stuff.
Yeah, but this is all sea.
Yeah.
What was the study? Was it Brunel University?
It was Brunel and Hull. This is like they're looking at specifically at UK mussels. They sampled.
Was it not all? I thought they tested like a lot of.
Well, I think it's common in a lot of fish, but in this study that you're referencing, it's only mussels they checked. They say for every 100 grams of mussels consumed, 70 pieces of microplastic are in it.
Do you remember those little microparticulates that were in cosmetics? Is that related? Yeah. Is that part of it?
That's a huge part of it, yeah.
So that's why they banned that in the UK. I don't know if they banned it anywhere else.
It's been quite a drastic campaign against plastics.
Straws as well. It hasn't been around for a huge amount of time, has it? It's already caused such a horrible amount. If we think the grand scheme of things, 60, 70 years that we've been using it daily. It's probably since after World War II, that's when we started using plastic bags and stuff. Before then it was baskets and, like weaved fabrics, paper bags. So we've done so much damage in only a few decades.
Would you like to have a guess how much plastic waste enters the ocean every year?
In tons?
In tons.
From the whole world?
Are we talking millions?
Yeah.
3 million?
And player 1?
100 million.
Very far off.
Who?
Player 1. Player 3, you were closest. It's 8 million tons of plastic.
8? Oh my gosh, that makes me sad though. 8 million tons.
Tons of plastic every year.
That's a done.
You have to
Digitally.
censor that one.
Oh yeah, sorry.
It's fine, player free, it's fine.
Oh, it's fine when you do it. When I do it, oh, you swear too much.
He rarely. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to edit player free.
I think that's a justified usage of that swear word when we're
Like,
talking about
censoring
when we're talking about plastic, like that much.
it is a ridiculous amount. I agree. I mean, recently, what have McDonald's said they're going to stop doing plastic straws,
Yeah.
and Starbucks are banning them from wherever they are.
2020,
Like, from
I
what-
read.
Yeah. So it looks like, well, at least plastic straws are on the way out, but our use of plastics needs to reduce drastically at the moment. At least go down the biodegradable route if possible.
Yeah, I don't know what we could do.
The thing is, those cardboard straws are rubbish.
They are.
They're absolutely
They need to have some way of.
like a resin
Well,
or something.
It's an engineering problem, though, isn't it? You know the structure, you know the material, you know how to improve it, and whether it's by infusing it with something or making the walls thicker or stuff that's basically going to cost more money to produce, I don't think it's going to change unless it's inexpensive to do.
Make them out of carbon nanotubes.
Yeah.
Sounds very expensive. Player 3.
Lead straws. We need lead straws.
Lead straws.
Children need to drink milkshakes from straws made from lead.